The easiest way to join in the round, so here is my beginning of round marker, and I've been working with this color. The easiest way to join in the round, and what we recommend for a lot of new knitters, just to keep it simple, is just to pick up your new color and knit with it, or work with it, whatever the stitch is, and just carry on like that. And then when you come back to this stitch, you have to be a little bit careful because it's loose, right? There's nothing securing it. So you can either weave in this end earlier or just be cognizant of it and then cinch it up when you're weaving in the ends at the end. Is moving your working needle for each stitch over and under the yarn. So let me see if I can show you that. So I've just gone over the working yarn with my needle. For the next stitch, I need to go under the tail. I said the working yarn, but I meant the tail. So here's my tail. I need my working needle to go underneath it. So see how that's under it? And then for the next stitch, I need to go, the working needle needs to go over it. So I'm going to bring it back down here. So you're just going over and under, and you can usually do that without moving the tail, but sometimes it gets a little difficult. There you go. And so now you can see that tail's all nice and secure. For things where the back isn't visible, like the branches cowl, it's a great example. You can just trim that a little shorter and leave it go, and you don't even need to do anything else with it. It's pretty nice and secure. This is a natural wool. It's gonna felt with wear, so it's just gonna get more secure as time goes, so nothing to worry about there. And then now it's all secure, and if I'm done with that working yarn, I can actually weave in that tail in the same way with the over and under. If I'm going to use it again, I would just leave it floating. Although I do typically want to secure it. You want to make sure that the yarn continues in the direction that it should go if you were to continue working with it. That makes sure that the forces are the same for this last stitch that they are for all the other stitches. So I'm just gonna, oh, I'm not weaving that in actually. So now I'm all set to work with my new color, and there you go. There's my join. This is gonna be invisible. You might see it a little bit now, but you can, as you pull it snug, it'll just vanish behind the work, especially with blocking. Now, what usually happens is I forget to weave in my end until it's time to use it. So you can do that manually as well. So what I'm going to do here is just pull this out. See how secure that is? That's great. So now I'm at the end of my row, and I'm like, oh, I need my blue. Forgot to add it before I needed it. Hang on, I got a little tangle here. So what I do, where did that go, is I just grab a tapestry needle and thread it. Here is my beginning of round marker. If you're using double points or flexi flips, always helpful to make sure you're in the right spot. Now this does exactly the same thing as weaving it in the way I just showed you. You're going to take your tapestry needle and what let me see if I can zoom in on this. You're going to come up through the float between these two stitches, float, leg, whatever you call it, shoulder, I've heard. I like shoulder. you're going to come up through that, and then you're going to just go down through the next one. Always working on the connections between the stitches, and that'll keep it invisible. And then you come up through this one and go down through the next one. And so this one's a little hidden. If you can't see it, just pull it a little, because those stitches get a little twisted on the needle sometimes, especially before blocking. There you go. And you can see this looks just the same. I'm weaving it in the same way I would have had I done it as I was working. And honestly, that's enough probably right there, but I'll do one more just so I end with a down. Again, you can just trim that short, leave it go. See how nice and snug that is? And that does the same thing. So now I can just switch. I'm gonna make sure this tail is going in this direction. This tail is going in this direction, which it should do if I were to continue knitting with it. And then I'm just going to start knitting with my new color. Now, if I'm not changing colors, there are two, or if it's a fade or something like that, there are two additional options for me. Actually, probably a lot more than two, but let me show you. So, the first one is, and this is one Elizabeth Zimmerman really likes, and I like it too. It's simple, and it works in a lot of cases. Where it doesn't work is if you want really clear, like here I have a lot of contrast, so it might show. That's the thing. If you're changing color, it might show. So you're just going to take the tail and hold it with your working yarn. So if you can see, I know I've got all these yarns under here. If you can see, I'm just holding these two together. And you're just going to knit typically 3 stitches. That gives you a nice secure start. And then you can just switch. You drop the old one, and start working with the new one. And now in like vintage intarsia patterns, this is how they'll always recommend you join the new color. And then you can be a little careful with it to make sure if you hold it so that, you know, the gray is always on top. Actually, when you come back and knit it, it can actually do a decent job of hiding the second color, right? Because those stitches are going to rotate. And then the last way, and it's another way I really like if I'm working with natural wools, something that felts easily and naturally. So not a superwash, nothing with nylon in it. But you can, actually, I'm just going to cut this and show you. Can I get this out of the way? Hang on. Let me... Okay, so for this one, if this is my old working yarn and my new working yarn, or vice versa, doesn't really matter. For the first thing I do is especially if it's a bulkier yarn, like this is a worsted weight, if you end up with 4 strands, that can get a little bulky in your knitting. So what I like to do is just undo a little at the top. And for anyone here who works with electronics, this might seem familiar too. I just trim off one strand of each end, and that's just going to help me prevent bulk. So now I'm going to fuse these together, and you can see, right, that I'm going to overlap them a little bit. So there'll be a little bit of extra bulk, but not as much as if I hadn't trimmed them. And that's my own thing. You can do it without trimming them. That's overcomplicating it, but I don't know, it bothers me if they're bulky. And then, as Elizabeth Zimmerman said, you just put some spit on it. And I don't know that I got quite enough. Hang on. There you go. And you're going to just put those together how you want them and add a little friction, a little heat. Hang on, it's moving. That's the other thing you have to watch out for. There you go. And now I have fused those together and I can just continue knitting as if there was no break. I do that a lot if I'm working with something really fine where the bulk is going to be noticeable, or like a lace that's really airy. So there you go, 3, 4, some number of ways to join a new working color, and hopefully that was helpful.